can do this with my eyes closed. It's too easy. It's too easy. I can do this with my eyes closed. It's too easy. It's too easy. It's too easy. I've been there, done it, seen it. I saw that. Boy, all that like Kenny. I did that. Still got crack, they fiendin'. Flow still hot like Phoenix. Shine so.
Yo, what is going on? Welcome to another edition of Breaking Bet. And, for everybody that's followed us throughout the whole year, we kind of can't believe that this time is here, but it is. Matt Grissom, it is the College World Series Finals, dude. We just motored through an entire season. How you feeling about this? Are you ready? Give me your thought process going on right now.
It's kind of bittersweet, isn't it? We've been together now, 4 months, and it's all quickly coming to a close. But I hate it for Wake Forest. I was really rooting for a Wake Forest Florida final so I could sit there with 2 futures tickets and just enjoy it. Now I'm sitting on Florida, still trying to figure out if I want to hedge it or not.
Yeah, listen, I understand that. Wake was obviously my team throughout the year, right? But when we first started talking, Florida was a team I repeatedly mentioned that I thought would make a deep run. Of course, I did have the concerns about the bullpen. That was my primary thing. But other than that, dude, they had the starting pitching, they had the offense, they had star power, they did a lot of things. And 15-1, I took a small ticket on it. Should have did a little bit bigger. But, at the end of the day, I'm really upset about my Demon Deacons. This is a team that is just, to me, is the best team in college baseball. Despite the fact that they're not here, their offense, for whatever reason, no-showed at the worst possible effing time. And that's why they're not here. Can't really blame their pitching. They went 10 scoreless innings against one of the best, if not the best offense in the country. And, for somebody that was preaching about them, as you know, since before the year started, it's just you had 2 chances to win 1 game and you get to the finals, then okay, it's a little bit more bearable if you lose in the finals because you could hedge the other way if you need be, or at least they're there. But just to have a complete meltdown, Matt, do you have any idea how bad it hurt my soul? I'm disgusted.
I'm right there with you. I guess the biggest difference is I felt like they were going to lose after they lost game 1. And I know we texted about it. They should have thrown Sean Sullivan the record versus lefties for LSU. Yep. It was right in front of Walter's face. I think he lost them the series right there.
I do too. We talked
even
about
have given them an opportunity to throw Skeens, and Florida better not make the same mistake, because that's what I've been harping on right here is if Florida is going to win it, they've got to do it in 2, because if it gets to game 3.
Do you think they're going to throw Skeens though? On Monday, I don't think they're going to do that because
No, why wouldn't they at this point?
But if they did, it wouldn't be. They're not throwing, bro. It's like Jay Johnson doesn't even give a shit about him. He's throwing 123 pitches, then he comes back, throws 117 on 4 days rest. Then he's going to come back on another short rest to throw another 100-something pitches. I get it, it's for the finals, but the final, winning a national championship does nothing for Paul Skeens. Paul Skeens' draft stock will not improve or drop based on the fact that they win or lose. Paul Skeens, his draft stock was never dependent on how well he pitched in this magnitude. He was always going to be a number 1 or number 2 pick or number 3 after what they saw this year. So, the fact is we're going to continue to risk this kid and his arm and his future.
Apparently it's his decision, though. He was the one that wanted to play in that game. And I'm glad he did. It made for an awesome matchup that I think all college baseball fans were wanting to see. But
I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to see it.
Him going over the 110 pitch count mark, though, that's what made the NCAA rule come in. If a pitcher pitches over 110, they mandatory have to sit out for at least 3 days.
3 days is nothing. I mean, 3
I know,
days isn't.
but
Especially in this stage.
You go back to June 2nd against Tulane. Paul Skeens has thrown 468 pitches in 22 days. Like, that's pretty insane. I don't think there's MLB pitchers that are doing that.
Well, Quinn Matthews. I think Quinn Matthews a little bit more. But
well, he got 156 in one, so maybe. But
I think realistically here, we're looking at what it is we're talking about before we're getting to LSU Florida is the fact that we both said the second game of the first game of the two game series between Wake LSU was we both felt Wake had to win that first game because you go Skeens versus Louder, like anything can happen. And that matchup was one of the best pitching matchups at any level. It lived up to every bit of the hype. But like if you're Wake Forest, you have an opportunity to close it with the skeleton crew, and they can't do it. Like I didn't understand the fact that Wake Forest throws Josh Hartle the first time against LSU. He was magnificent. 6 innings, 2 runs, struck out 9, 10, something like that. And even if you didn't know the things we've been talking about all year, how LSU's lineup against quality lefties is not there. Matt, how many times have we said it throughout the year? We pointed out that fact that they were not the same lineup against lefties as they are righties. So even if you didn't know that, you saw it firsthand with your lefty, Josh Hartle, against this LSU lineup. Now you come back in a closeout game. You throw Seth Keener, who he's a dog, but he's
good. He's good.
But Matt, he's a reliever. You only started throwing him in like certain situations as a starter down the stretch. You elect to go with this guy, a righty, instead of your all season long Saturday guy who's a lefty. You don't start him, and then what happens? Keener gets into trouble because he all of a sudden loses the strike zone. And then against Cade Beloso, a lefty, who you had 2-0, and you could have just walked to get to effing Jordan Thompson, who grounded into a double play ball anyway. You elect to keep him there. Then he grooves a 2-0 cock shot, and it goes 400 feet over the fence, as opposed to bringing in the lefty. Like, that is bad coaching. And I talked about it to my dad, too. He's like, this coach doesn't know what he's doing. I was like, yeah, he's never been here before. Jay Johnson's been in the moment. Like, I get it. But, like, Tom Walters was just as bad as the offense. He was just as bad as everybody else. And that cost him. Because if that situation with the home run doesn't happen, it's a 2-2 game. It's anybody's game at that point on. So I think Wake Forest, they shit the bed. Let's call it what it is. They were horrible, especially on the offensive end. The pitching, for the most part, did everything they could have done against a lineup of this magnitude.
Yep. He just let it get way out of hand before he brought Sullivan in. And then that irritated me too, because seeing the offensive production that Wake had done in the College World Series, I mean, they had like a 5.84 OPS compared to it was double that through the regular season. So you're not scoring runs. You've got a 2-0 lead. Bring in Sullivan then. Flex your bullpen right now. But then you bring him in when it's 5-2. You burnt Sullivan now, which, not knowing that you're going to face Rhett Louder, you could have saved Sullivan for the elimination game and still had a lefty. But it is what it is. To me, Tom Walter did the same thing that Dave Van Horn does sometimes, and he just leaves the pitcher in 2 or 3 batters too long. But when Beloso got walked, then he advanced to second on a wild pitch. Joe Barrett doubled. It was 2-1. And then the third rolled around. Cruz walked. Dugas walked. And then Beloso homered. And it was over at that point. I mean, at any point, you could have looked at what Keener was throwing and realized that this kid had no control over his pitch, and he needed to be pulled. Why in the world Tom Walter waited so long, I have no idea, especially with the bullpen that he had behind him.
I said that when it happened live. Like, why are you not pulling this kid? I don't know how he lost the strike zone so quick. Like, his first inning was awesome.
Yeah.
No, but the
Yeah.
first
Just
inning, he was great. One,
after
two,
the first
three, like
inning.
9
Yeah.
pitches. How do you lose it so easily? I didn't get
Yeah.
that. But, I mean, listen, it was a heartbreak for me because I had between me and my buddy who I put on to Wake Forest, because, like, before the Super Bowl, my aggressive scouting, and, we talked about it, how I was on them since before the year started. So I got him involved, and then he started adding more money with me throughout the year. Between the two of us, we had about $50K on Wake Forest in potential payout. So, you can imagine why I'm really upset. And the fact is, like, they've been the best team all year. And then, the offense just disappears. Brock Wilken, like, where were you? He had one big hit. He had one big hit in the game to make it 2-0. And then, like, dude, the final 2 games against LSU, 2 through 5 in the order, was like 0 for 24 with 11 strikeouts and 11 men left on base. Like, do you know how big of a disgrace that is? Do you know how hard that is? That's almost impossible. That's like unthinkable.
Oh, no. And then Nick Kurtz, I mean, I know he got scratched in that last game, but I don't think it would have mattered either way. Like, he wasn't present at all.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And I kept saying,
and
like,
Cesari, what happened to Adam Cesari? He wasn't even in the lineup in the second game.
Yeah, because he was literally useless. He almost cost Wake in the first game.
Pretty much everybody on Wake's team. I mean, nobody.
The only guys who actually, like, made a difference was Tommy Hawk and Pierce Bennett.
Yeah.
Everybody else, they like, their thing was they kept swinging at ball 4, no plate discipline, and then when they decided to take a pitch, it was right down the middle, and, like, they just were under the impression that if you don't hit a home run, it's not production. Like, they were afraid to take a walk. They were afraid to go the other way. They were afraid to put the ball on the ground. Like, it was just, I couldn't stand it. Everybody was swinging for the fences. Everybody was swinging for a big fly ball. Like, what the hell are you doing? Just absolutely horrible. And you know what the thing is? Like, LSU's offense wasn't even that good. Like, outside of one big 3-run home run, Wake Forest walked in one of their runs, or a wild pitch on one of their runs. Like, outside of that Beloso home run, they didn't do anything for the rest of the game once you brought Sullivan in. And then it took them 11 innings to get a 2-run walk-off home run because Minacci just threw a lazy first pitch get-me-over strike to Tommy White. Took it a little easy. Really, like, Wake Forest pitching showed up. That was their DNA. But, like, it mind boggles me. Like, if Wake Forest wasn't a good offensive team all year, I could sit there and say, okay, that wasn't their game. They were a pitch first team. Their offense didn't really show up. But that's not the case. That's not who this team was, Matt. And that's why, like, it really bothers me, especially against guys of LSU who are terrible. Guys who have never made a start in their life. Guys who have thrown 15 innings all year. And then they're going to come in and start shutting it down like they're 1985 Roger Clemens? In what world? We're not doing that. It was sickening. It was sickening to watch, dude. I rather would drink bleach than have to watch them trying to swing a bat for 9 innings again.
21 hits. They had 21 hits through the entire College World Series.
Disgusting.
4 games.
It was gross. Leaving runners on base. Forget it. Anyway, we have to talk about the team that actually won. LSU facing the Florida Gators. Another SEC matchup. Correct me if I'm wrong. This is a rematch of the 2017 College World Series.
And the 4th all-SEC affair since the format changed in 1999.
So what are you looking out for in this College World Series final?
This sounds overly simplistic and kind of a cop-out to say, but the winner of game 1 is going to win the series. If it goes 3, LSU's winning it. If Florida wins game 1, I think Waldrop is going to win game 2. Let's back up. So I think if it goes game 3, Skeens is winning. Waldrop's going to win game 2. So knowing that, it is kind of backwards handicapping, but you're going to get Sproat versus Floyd in game 1 tonight. Both these guys they're playing better, but they're not elite as far as the arms. Like, we're not going to get another repeat of Skeens and Louder. Sproat's got a 4.42 ERA right now in the postseason, and then Floyd is 5.56. So I think both of them are going to be susceptible to giving up some runs. The bullpens have both stepped up. 2.85 for LSU's bullpen, which has dropped tremendously from their near 5 ERA that they had through the regular season. Florida's bullpen's at 2.32. So Florida's got the pitching advantage on both starting pitching and bullpen pitching. The OPS through College World Series, I actually kind of nerded out and figured out how to do weighted statistics. So obviously College World Series, this weighted field a little bit more. OPS going into it, LSU 0.817, Florida 0.820. So, I mean, we've got razor thin margins on pretty much everything. LSU is averaging 6 runs a game. Florida is averaging 8 right now. No, hits. Sorry. I don't know. I don't know what to make of it. I mean, I think we're probably going to see some higher scoring games in this series than what we've seen in Omaha. I think today Florida is probably going to be 4 or 5 runs. LSU is going to be 4 or 5. I think it ends up being a 5-4 game either way. But
so with me, here's the things I'm looking out for. I'm looking out for a couple. One, what are the bullpens going to look like? The pitching has been, let's call it what it is. It's at least in the bullpen. The pitching has been way better than what it's been throughout the year. Like, whether it's luck or they just decide to show up for the first time in their lives, I want to see what that looks like now. Like, we know they delivered in the last round, but now this is the finals. It's a little bit different. So the super regional round and the finals, that is the only time it mimics what you will see in the regular season. The regionals and, the semifinals are more along the lines of just like that crazy double elimination kind of thing. So my opinion, a lot of it hinges on what we're going to see from these bullpens. Are guys like Nate Ackenhausen and Riley Cooper and, Gavin Guidry and Griffin Herring and those kind of guys, are they going to live up to what they've been doing? Same thing with Cade Fisher, Ryan Slater, Phillip Abner, Neely. Like, that is the X factor, because when you look at the end of the day, the LSU offense and the Florida offense are almost identical. They got first rounders, they got star power, they got length, they can hit home runs, they can get base hits. There's not much separating those two offenses. But then, aside from the bullpens, which I give Florida a slight edge, very slight. They have the closer. I think having
which
a legit
the numbers
closer,
would all agree with that too.
Yeah, having a legit closer certainly helps. But when you break down the starting pitching, it's Florida. It's not even close. I think that's the biggest advantage is Florida with the starting pitching. They're on more rest. All their guys are going to go. They're not forcing anybody on short rest. You got, honestly, Hurston Waldrip, who we both think is the guy that's going to get the win tomorrow for Sunday's game. It really comes down to this. This might be the deciding factor in who wins the series, who wins tonight. And for my money, give me Sproat over Ty Floyd. Like, we'll get into that game a little bit more, but Sproat's had bad moments this year. But if you look at him, dude, 4 straight quality starts. Sproat's been on his game. His stuff looks better than ever. I mean,
yeah, I guess my only hesitation is he's still giving up on average 3 runs a game. And has the offense been as good that he's faced as LSU's?
I mean, TCU's no pushover. TCU's offense, it's not as good as LSU's, but it's no pushover. That's the one thing. And we're going to get into that game a little bit more. But before we do, the last thing I want to mention, let's take in what we're about to see. And like, I've been trying to, and Matt, I know you've been doing it as well, and Noah and Q, like, we've been trying to set up the moments and what this means over the last couple weeks of like the first rounders and some of the generational talents we're seeing in this playoffs alone. Top 10 picks, all three guys that are Golden Spikes finalists in this finals. All three guys that are projected top 3 picks between Cruz, Gaines, and Langford, all in this series. So, like, enjoy it while you have it, because this is a very special series. A lot of these guys are not only going to be drafted extremely high, they're going to be in the pros relatively within the next 2 years, and they're probably going to be guys that you talk about 10 years, in 10 years, be like, wow, remember that College World Series they played against each other? Like, enjoy it while you have it. We're watching something very special. Like, don't realize it before it's too late. Like, just see this now. And then you got a couple guys for next year that are going to be top 10 picks with Cags and Tommy White and probably Thatcher Hurd. So I would definitely make sure you appreciate what we have this weekend if you have the ability to.
So you just brought up a good point, which oddly enough, with Thatcher Hurd, I was going through and getting his stats, but Hurd's kind of been the unsung hero of all this. I think he delivered on 3 innings pitched in the first game, only allowed 1 hit. The outing before that, he gave up 1 earned run. The other one before that, he went 5 innings. He gave up 4. That was pretty bad. But over his last 2, I think he's giving you a lot more length. He's got a 4.09 ERA in the postseason, so better than Ty Floyd. And I know there for a while, Thatcher Hurd was kind of your day 3 guy. But it's interesting to see, because I don't know who they go with tomorrow against Waldrop. But
that's the big question.
I've got to believe that today, if they're going to try to win, it's going to be Ty Floyd, probably some Thatcher Hurd, and then Gavin Guidry.
I mean, listen, Hurd has been really good. You know, one of the things that's really plagued him this year is the home run ball. He's given up 8 home runs, but like he's not a true starter. So in different capacities. Now, playing in this ballpark has really helped out pitchers a lot, because you really have to get into one to make it leave the yard, unless you squeak one over one of the lines. But I mean, listen, Hurd was a guy not a lot of people knew about if you didn't follow the sport. He was pretty good as a freshman at UCLA for the first 2 months. Then he hurts his back. He's out for the rest of the year. Then he transfers over. But like, you know, if you watched him last year, you know he's got really good stuff. And now the thing is, these guys are coming into LSU and these big programs, the big name, and then you're on a bigger stage, and you know, you flash one little thing and people are like, oh, he's good. But like, you know, a guy like Hurd, if you paid attention, like, you know what he's got. And yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with some of the inconsistencies with the command, and, you know, he's not always sharp, but this guy, when he's on, he is tough to hit. I mean, he's got high 90s with a good slider. So, you know, Thatcher Hurd is a secret weapon. But what I will say is, a lot of the times is when he's made starts, he's gotten into trouble when he's been a starter. Like, when you say, hey, you're a middle reliever, go get us 2 or 3 innings. I think that's a little bit more his role. So I don't know about using him as a starter. It hasn't really panned out all that well for LSU throughout most of the year. And let's call it what it is. Even though Florida's lineup hasn't been as good as it normally has been, it's been much better than Wake Forest. So I think a lot of it has to do with Wake Forest. Like, yeah. I think Wake Forest just threw up all over themselves. But nevertheless, I would feel confident in saying Thatcher Hurd is a first-rounder next year, probably a top 10 pick, depending on what happens in 2024. All right, so before we get into this first game, let's get off a quick hashtag ad. If you play a ton of prize picks like the rest of us at Karma, you definitely want to sign up for access to the prize picks predictor on this site. It includes AI player prop projections every day for NBA, NHL, NFL, MLB, college football, college basketball, WNBA, and more, including some college baseball now. Go to betkarma.com/JohnnyVTV to sign up ASAP. Get a nice little deal when you use my name, bro. Like, why wouldn't you do it? All right, Mr. Grissom, take me through your first handicap of the Florida Gators as a now -140 favorite over LSU. Total hanging between 9 and 9.5, depending on where you look.
I think, like I said earlier, I think this is going to be one of the higher scoring games that we've had in the College World Series. So if that total gets below, I think probably 9, you're probably safe to take the over. I think it lands 9. I think it's a 5-4 game, like I indicated earlier. Who wins? I'm not sure. I think if you get 5 2/3 out of Sproat, which is about what he's averaging, versus 4 2/3 out of Floyd, you're probably going to have a pretty tight game going into the bullpens, and we've indicated that Florida's got the bullpen advantage. So I would say 5-4, Florida wins. It's probably going to hit that run line dog, money line favorite, and under to the opening number again, which continues to do at a abnormal rate. I think it's like, I tweeted it out the other day, it's like 26 or 30-3 or something. It's been pretty crazy.
And just for real quick, just to cut you off, like anybody that doesn't understand what that means, it basically means out of all these College World Series games, the favorite has won by exactly 1 run in a very tight game. And it's been an extremely common theme. That's all.
Yeah, it's 38-1. So it's clipping at about a 78%. Yeah.
Too bad you can't
just blindly bet it. Blindly bet money line favorite, dog plus 1.5 in the under. But you got to get you got to get the opening number on that under. But
yeah, now it's tough. So let me ask you this. So the total, and I could be wrong, I didn't see it at anything higher than 10.5 anywhere.
Yeah, that's as high as I saw it.
I think 10.5 was the open. That's what I grabbed it. I tweeted it out last night or very early this morning at 10.5 with Florida at -120. So now the total has come down a full run or a run and a half, depending on where you're looking. I think for my money, and I did this the other day, it almost worked, by the way, with Rhett Lauder strikeouts. So if you don't know what I did, which, at least for this last couple games, we're putting out player props, probably just because it's high profile, it's championship, that kind of thing. But regardless, they put out DraftKings Rhett Lauder 7+ strikeouts at this number. Then FanDuel did under 7.5 Ks. So I took both sides. And, if Gavin Dugas didn't get extremely lucky, get 2 charity calls for his birthday, that would have been strike 3. Rhett Lauder has 7 strikeouts exactly and both hit. And you middle it to hit 2 numbers, or one's going to hit, one's going to lose, and you really don't get hurt. So I think in that case, I would do this again. If this total gets to like 8.5, I would take the over 8.5, Matt, because I already have the under 10.5. Now you have 9 and 10 to hit a middle. And if it doesn't happen, then again, you don't get hurt. But I think 9 and 10 are 2 great numbers today. So, in that case, I'd be looking to do that, since I already gave out the 10.5 under.
Yeah, so I tried a little something where I would take the average of the ERA that the pitcher and bullpen have given up and the average runs scored through the College World Series to try to predict some sort of line. It's been basically 2 runs higher than what it actually the result has been, but it's been right on the same side all 3 games that I've tracked it and to the total. So doing that again, I've got Florida scoring a projected 4.5 runs, 4.5, with LSU scoring 3.9. That would be a total of 8.4. So that over under being at 9 right now, I just, that's really close to what I'm indicating that it's going to be. So rounding up, you've got a final of Florida 5, LSU 4, which I'm pretty confident we're going to get into that high level of scoring between these 2 pitchers.
It's definitely possible. I think for me, Florida is the side. Sproat's been really good, dude. Sproat's been really good. Ty Floyd, I do think at some point, like, you could look at what LSU's pitching did against Tennessee, whose offense we know has the tendency to just fall off the face of the earth. And then Wake Forest, whose offense did fall off the face of the earth. So, like, they did really well against them. But I don't know if we can sit there and say, okay, they're going to do well against Florida, because Florida's offense has shown us a little something. So, like, I don't think it's apples to apples. And for my money, I think Florida, they're going to be able to get to Ty Floyd. Ty Floyd's not an invincible pitcher. He's a guy who throws 75% fastballs. And he really only has one other solid pitch in that slider to go along with it. And Florida is a big fastball hunting team. You have guys like Wyatt Langford who live for the middle up fastball. Those are the pitches he hits 450 feet. You got Caglione. If he gets a fastball down, because Caglione has a huge uppercut, if that pitch is down, he's going to be the league leader with 32 home runs. Josh Rivera's been hitting the cover off the ball. I think the edge here is with Florida. Pitching, lineup's been better. They're on a little bit more rest. And, LSU has kind of used almost all their pieces. Almost every one of their pitchers has been used at some point in the past 5 days. So I think, Florida getting steam is the right side here. I probably wouldn't take the Gators more than minus 150, though. And I think Sproat's got to continue to do what he's doing. So I honestly think the first, what you would say, the first 1 to 5 runs probably wins tonight.
Yeah. I agree. And Ty Floyd, looking back at his numbers, his 5.56 ERA has come against Wake Forest, like I said, who had struggled to hit the ball in the College World Series. Kentucky, who doesn't really have a lot of guys in that batting order yet, they still hit him 7 times, and he gave up 3 earned runs. And then Oregon State, who we've laughed about the Pac-12 being offensively challenged all year long, where they could win a game if the race to 5 was the case. But he gave up 1 against them or 2 against them, and in only 3 innings pitched. So I do think Ty Floyd, this is going to be the toughest batting order that he has faced. Mm-hmm. So that 5.56 ERA is probably going to be over that today against Florida.
I mean, he got beat up by Auburn a little bit. He got murdered by Alabama. South Carolina touched him. Tennessee touched him. Even Georgia got to him a little bit. 4 runs in 7 innings, 5 hits. I think really, though, I don't want to keep digging at LSU, but if we're being honest, and like I said this from the jump when I watched Selection Show, they had the easiest draw of any team. I mean, their path was laughable. And like, I said it from the jump, like, this is a team that was the number 1 seed for 12 weeks. They get pushed all the way back to 5. And like, this is why it's so hard with this tournament and this format in this sport. So much of it is luck. You don't know who you're going to play. And LSU's toughest challenge was Oregon State in the regionals, who we both have said at no point this year we took seriously. Then they get Kentucky in the super regionals, who was a completely different team in the second half. Like, they really got a break, dude. Just to get to the College World Series, they were not challenged at all. Florida, at the bare minimum, had to go against South Carolina. I personally, that's what I think. I think if LSU had to face a little bit tougher task, I don't know if they get through.
True. I will say they've had a harder path to this point than Florida has had.
For sure.
And I think that may be why their hitting is down as far as numbers go. Like, they're only batting a 700 OPS through the College World Series, but they've faced a lot of good arms.
Yeah.
I mean, Tennessee, Stanford, Wake Forest, they have outside of Stanford, you could take Quinn Matthews out of the equation because he obviously didn't pitch against LSU. But, I mean, those are some elite pitching squads. You had the number 1 and number 2 pitching staffs in the country in that same bracket. But
No, I agree. They have
at the
faced
end
a
of the
lot of
day,
really good pitching.
at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, is this recency bias that like people that haven't watched more than the last 3 days of college baseball are probably looking at LSU thinking like, oh, this is last year's Ole Miss team. They're pulling it together and they're winning, with really good pitching. But eventually, are they gonna regress to the mean? Which I think they will. But at this point, I can see why public money would be flooding in on LSU, thinking that they're just, oh, nobody's beating them right now. They just knocked off the number 1 overall seed. And then they get into this series with Florida and get swept 0-2.
Listen, they might. This could go either way. It just, I think why Florida has been so successful is because their pitchers have been giving them length. Sproat and Waldrop have been giving them 6, 7, 8 innings.
Waldrop has been absolute
Unreal.
Money. He's got an
unreal.
0.86 ERA.
Yeah.
He's given up
I've said
2 runs in 3.
How many times have I mentioned it like throughout the last couple of weeks? No player, in my opinion, has risen their draft stock higher than Hurston Waldrop has.
Yeah.
Like he's improved himself so much that I think if tomorrow, let's say he goes out there, goes 7 innings, 2 runs, strikes out 10, regardless of a win or loss, I think we're probably looking at him being a top 10 arm. I think we might see him in the top 10. And mind you, this is a guy who, yes, he was a first rounder, so it's not exactly like a Cade Horton situation, but he was a guy that was like being talked about in like the mid-20s. To move that much, if that happens, is a big jump. But I think ultimately Brandon Sproat is the guy. I think he gets off to a good start tonight. I would expect him to go about 6 innings, 3 runs. And I think the Florida Gators are going to touch Ty Floyd. How about my boy Wyatt Langford, this generation's Mike Trout, going to take care of business against Ty Floyd, hunt that fastball, and put one out. 435 over the left center wall, baby. How you doing?
I hope so. My view on it is skewed, obviously, because of the Florida's future. So I don't really, as an Arkansas fan, want to have a reason to root for LSU. The only thing that may intrigue me is if it's like a 1-0 game through the 3rd, and they're giving me, obviously, a 1-0 game or 1-0 lead Florida. If they give me a plus 1.5 with some plus money or plus 2.5 even on LSU, I may kind of pseudo hedge there. But that's just because I think it's going to be, tight. I don't want to lay the 180 on the run line right now to take LSU plus 1.5. But if that gets down below like 140, I'd probably have to bet it.
So you took 11-1, 2 units on Florida when preseason, or no? It could have been preseason.
No, it was.
That was probably in I would say
May
late April.
20th.
May 20th.
Yeah,
it was not bad. Florida was a team. I had 2 units on Florida from at the first week of the season, just because I had a feeling they were going to be a team that was going to be like one of the final 8. But all right. So taking out your bias, Matt, at the current price right now, do you think the Florida Gators will win the College World Series? We already said how they would, but do you think they actually execute it?
I think they will. I have to live and die on the hill that this team is just not very good when it gets to the bullpen. Talking about LSU. So yes, they've been on an unbelievably great run, but they haven't done it against teams that could bat well. TCU or Tennessee's bats, they struggled all season long, and Wake Forest struggled in the postseason and the College World Series. They couldn't hit. So I think Florida, with what they've got in their batting lineup, they're going to be able to tattoo a couple of these pitchers for LSU that have had great outings. Riley Cooper was another guy that we didn't even mention, but he stepped up big. But I think they're all hittable, and I think they're going to get exposed a little bit because of this Florida star-powered offense.
Yeah, really, a lot of these guys, LSU was thrown out. They're throwing out guys that are 89 to 92 with somewhat decent breaking balls. Like, that's not impressive. That's just it was really an indictment on how bad Wake Forest was. So
Yeah,
I do think
I
the
agree.
advantage is Florida. Now, let me ask you this. Let's say you have absolutely no money. First time watch college baseball ever. Are you cool laying the 115 for Florida? Like, how would you go about approaching that? Like, from somebody that has no stake in anything.
So that's a good theory, because I'm of the opinion Florida would win. If I didn't have a futures ticket, I would probably bet Florida. But because I've already got them, I'm now trying to think of reasons why to bet the other side. But if you like Florida, they've got to win game one, in my opinion. So you're basically either shopping. What'd you say the line was now? Minus 140 for tonight?
Yeah, for tonight, about 140. Yeah.
And minus 115 for the series. So take the 115 at the better price.
Because if they win tonight,
you're in the driver's seat with Waldrop going tomorrow. And if they, for some reason, win tonight and lose tomorrow, you could hedge out of it and bet on Paul Skeens.
I mean, I think I don't know if Skeens is going to go Monday, though. They've already he might, but it's just like, dude, at what point?
Which may be a moot point. And you know, I feel like we've talked a lot about Paul Skeens that we may not even see in the postseason, any further in the postseason, I should say. But
yeah,
that's what happens when you're National Player of the Year.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if you even look at it last year, right? Like Dylan DeLucia was the reason why Ole Miss probably won. Didn't even pitch in the finals, just the way it broke. But
yeah,
I think ultimately, that's a good approach. I would look at the Gators. I think minus 115 is fair. I don't think I'd really play it out past 130 for the finals just to try and handicap for 2 games. But I do like Florida to win this. Their pitching is better, starting and bullpen. They're more rested. LSU is kind of shuffling around with their different arms. And, their offense hasn't been that good either, even though, yes, they have faced some elite pitching like Wake Forest, Chase Burns. Chase Burns shut them down. Speaking of, this kid throwing his name in the transfer portal. So
yeah, what is up with that?
I don't know, man. Apparently
we're gonna have to do like a college baseball offseason show, just kind of wrap my head around all this, because I haven't been able to follow it. Q's followed it because I feel like everybody's going to Florida right now. Jay Johnson makes a comment about if you're a transfer player, you want to come to LSU. I mean, it's like the wild, wild west out here with NIL deals.
I know, seriously. But they're saying Burns might not leave. They're saying he might just test the waters. But, like, apparently there was I can't confirm anything, but, like, apparently maybe TCU was in the loop. Why the hell would you leave the SEC to go to TCU, who had their first big season in, like, however long, a decade? Georgia, maybe because of a coaching change, would never go to Georgia. Like, I would imagine people are going to leave Georgia. Like Charlie Condon, I would imagine there's a shot he leaves. But regardless, that's a conversation for another day once we have more information. But before we start wrapping it up here, let's talk quickly about some player props. So it's very interesting, at least from the pitcher's advantage. What do you make of some of these numbers here? Where are you looking to take advantage of?
I think all of the numbers are criminally mispriced.
Dude, they don't do this at all throughout the year. So what else do they know? They just probably go by their median strikeout.
Yeah, I don't know. That, like, the home run props, not getting more than 2-1 on guys that haven't even come close to hitting a home run.
Yeah, that's criminal.
I don't know that we're going to see anybody hit one today. The last time I saw the weather, I think the wind's blowing in, which it's always blowing in, I feel like, because it blows towards the river.
Yeah, whoever constructed that field is an idiot.
Yeah. But I don't know. I don't like any of them. I mean, you could maybe talk me into taking the over on Sproat's K-prop at 6.5. If you can get 6.5 on Floyd, I like the under. He hasn't done that in quite some time.
So for me, I probably
say
like
that he had 10 against Wake Forest.
Yeah, but Wake's a little bit different, right? I mean,
But before
Floyd's
that,
a guy
he had 5. He had 5 against Kentucky. He had 0 against Oregon State.
I mean, I'm probably going to stay away from Floyd, to tell you the truth, because he's a guy who can strike you out.
He's going to regress. Like, he's got.
I do too, but I do too, but I do think there's a possibility that Ty Floyd could come out there, go 5 innings, 7 strikeouts. Like, that's why I wouldn't bet against him. Sproat, on the other hand, who, on DraftKings, I put to record 7+ Ks at half a unit at -120. I think that's fair. He's had 3 straight games with 7 outings. He's giving you 6 innings. In my opinion, if Sproat goes 6 innings, which he has in 4 straight games, knock wood, I think 7 strikeouts is fair. And for him to get 8 at +130, that's also in play. Like, Sproat's a guy who's jumped tremendously in the strikeout department this year. A lot of which is probably not only because of his innings, but because his stuff has gotten even better from last year. He's improved stuff-wise from last year. And I think just the fact is we're going to see strikeouts from this guy. And I think little half unit here at -120 for him to get 7 is definitely in the cards. If you look at what he's done in his last handful of starts. I know he's gotten like 3 straight with 7+.
127 strikeouts and 102 innings pitched.
It's pretty good. He's got 4. He's got 3 straight games of 7 Ks. 4 of his last 5 outings are 7 Ks.
And he's giving you, on average, 5 2/3 through the postseason. So, times that by the 1.25 average, 7.08. It's going to be close, but I think over 6.5 is definitely playable.
Yeah, and we're seeing different numbers here on FanDuel if you're taking the over, but I would advise just going to DraftKings to get the 7+, because that means he's just got to get 7, and you're getting 10 cents less or 15 cents less on the VIG. But all right, this, Matt, will be our last show for in season. It's been a pleasure, man. It really has been. I've enjoyed doing this with you, and I can't wait. I mean, we're going to do our draft show in a couple weeks for this sport once we get a little bit more information as we get a little bit closer. And, I think we're going to have an off-season show, right? We're going to be doing this stuff, talking about, catching up and keeping people informed about what's going on, maybe tracking some of the guys that are closing in on the big leagues and, that sort of thing. But before we get out of here, don't forget, we got Johnny V's Loch Ness Monster. My card is Florida -120. The under 10.5, which I gave out earlier. Sproat 7+ Ks, half unit. And if that total gets down to 8.5, I'm probably going to jump on the over and try and shoot for the middle. So don't forget to follow Matt at Grissom Tweets. Follow me at _JohnnyVTV. Thank you so much, Matt. It's been an absolute pleasure this season. I feel like we both had pretty big years and really made ourselves known as staples in this business. So I want to say thank you for your dedication, my friend. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. Been a fun ride.
All right. Take it easy, everybody. Best of luck tonight and this weekend. And reach out to us on Twitter if you have any questions or need any help with your bets. And we'll see you soon. Best of luck.
Cheers.